Dry it off, and would you look at that shine? Hey guys, hope you're ready for another fun project today. So let's get started off with a few items, starting with this 18 gauge wire, copper wire. It's cut at 7 inches long. We'll need one piece of that. We'll also need some 28 gauge wire to do some wrapping. There'll just be very little wrapping to do, just to tie the piece together a little bit. We'll also need a pair of chain nose pliers. You're going to need a pair of round nose pliers. Also, some flush cutters. Flush cutters are great because one side will cut your wire flush or flat. A chasing hammer to flatten the wire out a little bit. A bench block to flatten your wire on. And I am going to show you a little bit how to polish a piece. This is how I like to polish my pieces. This is not how everyone does it, but I like to use these micro mesh sanding pads to polish my piece. I'm going to show you how I do that. Also, you're going to need some sort of chain to hang your pendant on. I use this copper chain that I have pre-made before this video. So whatever type you like, whatever length you like. I'm also going to show you how to use a rotary tumbler. So first we're going to start off with this 18 gauge 7-inch piece of wire, and I'm going to flush cut that end so it's all nice and flat before we use it. And then with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to grab about 1.5 inches into this piece of wire and make up my first bend or a bend. And this is going to be the bottom of the stem of the rose. So I'm going to squish that wire almost all the way together, just like that. And then I'm going to pull that wire away from the main stem a little bit like that, and then start shaping my little leaf. So taking my chain nose pliers, once again, I'm going to make a bend, and I'm going to make the shape leaf I want to. You can be creative with this. You can make a longer, skinnier leaf. You can make a round leaf. You can make a little diamond shaped leaf. I'm choosing to make a little bit of a teardrop shaped leaf. So the top part is rounder while the bottom part points at the back at the wire again. So I'm going to take my flush cutters and snip off the end of that wire right where the end meets back to that base wire. And you can see how I've done that there. And now I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and I'm going to push that wire back in to my piece so it's in there tucked in up against that base wire. Just like that. And there you can see it's all nice and flat up against itself there. Now I'm going to bend this longer tail of the wire almost at a 90 degree. And with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to start the first bend of my rose. So I'm going to grab right here and then just bend upward. Now this takes a little bit of creativity of how you want to make your rose. I'm just going to make some little bends back and forth to kind of give it that rose-like look. So here I'm taking that tail end of the wire, I'm squishing it back together, I'm going to pull that tail to kind of line up with the base of that rosebud right there. So with my chain nose pliers, I'm going to grab right where the base of that rosebud is, and then grab the tail of the wire and pull it out a little bit away, because I'm going to make like little S shape here, because I want this wire to come back up to the top. So here you can see I'm doing that, and I'm trying to make this so it's all inside of that little bud or that flower. And you can kind of see that S shape there. And I'm going to press that wire back up against itself, just like that. And then I'm going to pull this wire around, all the way around and back behind the piece, which looks like behind the piece, but that's going to end up to be the front. And then I'm going to pull this back out a little bit because I want the top of this petal to be a little bit squared off. So I'm going to pull it out and then square that top petal, and you'll see what I mean here in just a minute. See how there's a little square right there? And now I'm going to take the tail end once again and wrap it up around the other side, leaving a bit of space between that last wire and this new part that I'm doing. And again, I'm going to kind of square the end of this wire off into a 90-degree angle at the top of the rose there. You see how it's a little bit squared off there? And then finding the center, I'm going to create a 90-degree bend up. Like that. Do you see how that looks like a little rose now? Now I'm going to take my chasing hammer and I'm going to harden and flatten all of this wire. So here you can see I'm flattening that down. Now I'm being careful at the part where the wire overlaps the stem. You don't want to hammer too much right on that because that will weaken that wire right in that area. So only try to hammer around all of that, not right on top of it. Just a slight little hammer right on top. So see here, I'm just trying to do around those edges. And now I'm bending a 90-degree angle out toward the front. This is going to be our bail. I'm going to take my round nose pliers and grab about 1/3 of the way up the round nose pliers. And then I'm going to pull the tail end of that wire around and back toward the front of my piece. Notice I did readjust my pliers there. It makes it a little bit easier to grab that wire and pull it toward the front of the piece without the other side of the round nose pliers being in the way. With my flush cutters, I'm going to snip off the tail end of that wire. And not with the round nose pliers, but the chain nose pliers. I will twist that piece back into place so that we've got a nice little loop there. And then grabbing my bench block again and the chasing hammer, I'm going to hammer this bail just to give it some strength so that it doesn't pull apart when it is warm. And there you can see that finished bail. There's a little space there, so I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just snug it up a bit. And make those last minute adjustments, make sure everything is flush. And here you can see that completed piece thus far. And there are some tool marks that come with making a piece of jewelry. So the next step is going to be polishing our piece. So here you can see it is pretty shiny, but I can get it even more shiny. So here I'm going to start with my heaviest grit of my micro mesh pads, and I'm going to start sanding all of my piece. So getting all the little edges, and this does take a little time and a little effort, and I'm going to go through each grit of these micro mesh sanding pads. I love the pads because they're soft and they kind of get in those little grooves that are hard to get, but yet it's stiff enough to really get around different places. So here I'm down to the very last little micro mesh pad, and you can already see the shine on this piece. I didn't want to bore you with going through every single piece, so we sped this process up with the magic of editing. And here it is, all finished up after I've done all the polishing. There's still some areas I wasn't completely happy with, and I'm going to show you how I get it completely polished when I'm finished. But first, I wanted to add a little bit of extra sturdiness to this piece because the bail and where the stem is, it's a little bit loosey-goosey, I guess you could call it. So I'm going to use this weaving wire or this wrapping wire to wrap around my piece, and I'm going to do 3 wraps right here at the top of the rose, just some single wraps. There you can see the third one. Get that nice and tight and squish up those wraps nice and close together, just like that. And then I'm going to take the longer tail here, and I'm going to wrap it around the top 2 wires. And I'm going to wrap around 2 times. And that's just going to pull those 2 pieces together to secure them together nice and tight, so it doesn't pull apart when the person is wearing this particular piece. Now we're going to wrap around 3 times, so there's 1, 2, and one more time, 3 around the right side of that rose to end off those wraps. So now we're going to push all that nice and tight together, grab the flush cutters, cut the tail end of that wire, then the bent nose chain nose pliers, and burnish that end to the piece. And we're going to do the same on the right side here. So flush cut, then burnish the wire to the piece with the bent chain nose pliers, and this is the finished product of that wrap. Now what I don't show here is that I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom part of this rose where the stem and the rosebud meets. So you'll see that later in the video, but I do that as well. Now I'm going to show you how I really like to make my pieces shine. I'm going to use this Shine Bright Burnishing Compound Concentrate and this Lortone Tumbler. I'm not sponsored by either of these products. I just like the way that these products work. So first up is this barrel that I'm going to pull off of here and move this main part of the tumbler back. I'm going to start off by taking this little locking nut off and the washer, and then there's a little cover here. It kind of suctions on there, so you have to pull it off, and then pull away this rubber away from the inner rubber gasket, and then we can pull the lid out. And inside of this barrel I have some steel shot. I have about a half a cup of steel shot in here. I just keep it stored in there when it's dry. There are different sizes in here. We've got some rods, some little balls in there. There's the smaller ones and bigger ones, and then there's like little saucer shaped ones in there. And now I've got some filtered or distilled water that fills up just to the top of my steel shot put in here. And then I'm going to add just a few drops of the burnishing compound to this. This is all going to help give that shine we want to our piece. There we go. It doesn't take a lot. Then I'm going to add my piece and then seal it all back up the same way I took it apart. So I'm going to push that cap back on there. Make sure it's good and tight. Then put the lid on. And it takes a little pushing down to get it down there. Put the washer back on and the locking nut. And this has a little groove in it that sits into a little spot on the tumbler, which I'll show you here in a minute. So there, that just sits down into that little V-shaped spot there. And now I'm going to go plug this in to get it started. And then this will go for about an hour, is usually what I like to run my pieces at. Once it's finished, I'm going to pull it off of the tumbler after turning it off. And then we'll open it all back up the same way we did earlier. Again, once that has been running around a bit, it tends to get like a little suction to it, so it takes a bit to get off. Go. And there you can see the piece there. And there's the start of it. So I'm going to go rinse it off and dry it off, and would you look at that shine. We all love a little bit of shine in our lives, don't we? It's just beautiful. I always enjoy seeing the difference of the piece when it goes in the barrel and then when it comes back out when it's finished. It's so very satisfying. So here you can see I've pulled out my sieve. This is what you're going to dump your shot and liquids down into the drain with. So your shot goes into the sieve, obviously. Then rinse it with hot water in the sieve. Then dump them on a paper towel to dry for a while. Make sure your barrel is completely dry, and then you can put your shot back into your barrel and store it all away. Well, here's the finished product. What do you guys think? As you can see at the bottom of that rosebud is those wraps that I was talking about earlier. So you could see the top and the bottom of that rose have wraps to kind of secure everything together. There's the back of the piece. And then back again to the front. Let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of this project. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Any comment is welcome. Don't be bashful. Thank you so much for watching, and if you liked this video, don't forget to like it, and please subscribe if you want to see more like this video. Thanks for watching. We'll see y'all next week.